Hello, and welcome to Pieces of China, a series that tells the story of China one object at a time. I'm Dinda Elliott, the Director of Programs at China Institute, and we are so honored today to be joined by Jindong Cai, who is the founder of the U.S.-China Music Institute at Bard College, and also, I'm very delighted to say, the Artistic Director of Music at China Institute. Jindong Cai is not only a brilliant conductor and a musician, he is the ultimate cultural bridge builder. Born in China and educated both there and in the US, he's spent his whole life really advancing cultural exchange from Stanford to Bard to all across China and all across the world, cultural exchange, especially between China and the United States. So today we're going to talk about one seminal concert that Jindong performed in Shanghai in 1997. So we're going to go back in time to 1997. And Jindong, firstly, welcome. We're so happy to have you today.
Glad to be here.
It's a delight. So Jindong, tell us, why did you choose this particular concert, this program for the concert to talk about? Set the scene for us for a moment. Let's go back to 1997. How unusual at that time was it to present a concert of American music like that? And Aaron, I think, is going to show us the actual program from the concert.
Yes. Yeah, I think what I like to say is 1980s and 1990 is the most vibrant time of music in China, and especially in 1990s. There are more orchestra evolved, more orchestra want to do symphony concerts, and I have been conducting Chinese orchestras throughout those years. And so the Shanghai Symphony invited me to do a series of concerts. And so we were talking about what is the best to representing something new. So we came out with the idea to introduce American symphonic music. So we have a two weeks of period, and we had two major concerts and introduce music from America. So and I remember I was so excited because I think this is a first time really systematically to introduce American symphonic music from Bernstein, Copeland, Gershwin, and or even John Williams does the music, and to something really serious. So I programmed this two directions. One is more in the American folklore or American pop side, because that's what is very exciting,
And that was the first concert that we can see on the left of our screen there.
That's right. That's the first concert you can see from Bernstein's pieces, Copeland pieces, and it's really fun. It's for orchestra. It's very interesting. Is for orchestra, many of them it's first time to play American music. So you have to teach them. For example, in American orchestras, when you tell the orchestra member to say this part is swing, then everyone know exactly how to swing. And then in Chinese orchestra, they never swing. So they don't really know how to swing because they only can play whatever on the music. So I have to tell them exactly mechanically or rhythmically, how do you swing? How do you switch the beats? And so
how did they do? Were they able to do it?
Oh, they did wonderfully. So it's wonderful. And then, of course, in another program, I want to introduce some what do you call serious American music, and so that's what I think is the important tradition is. Especially, I want to introduce American composers' music, how a composer responds to the society, how to respond to the people's voice, and so then I thought really long time, then I decided to introduce this piece by John Corigliano. And John Corigliano is a very famous, legendary American composers, and during the 1990s, that the whole decade, the AIDS is really it's very tragic things like just almost like today, right? Happen all over the world. So this is for John, this is like a tragedy of humanity, and how as an artist how we face it, and especially he had few friends died of AIDS. So he never write symphony before, but this one, when the Chicago Symphony commissioned him to write a piece, then he decided to write a symphony. Number one, basically, is to commemorate his friend's death of AIDS. So it's a very, very profound, very, very really moving piece. And I decided to perform this piece. And I think during that time, even in China, AIDS is a very sensitive issue. But, they agreed for us to do this piece. So I went to New York. I met with John Corigliano in his apartment. We talk about how this is important. At the first time premiered is such major piece in China, and he wrote a very wonderful letter to the Shanghai Symphony to say, I'm honored to have this opportunity, and then think this cultural exchange can make us to come close together. As a musician, as an American, he really a champion of this orchestra.
It's so fascinating. And when you were presenting this idea to the Shanghai Symphony or to whomever you had to present it to, was it difficult given that was such a sensitive topic? And the very idea that, as you said, American music kind of sometimes, not always, but sometimes is a reflection of the kind of political moment or whatever. Was that a conversation you had with them at the time?
Yeah, there's a conversation about this, but what I frame this is to say, I pair this piece with a Chinese composer's piece, and the piece is based on very famous Chinese poet Qu Yuan, and wrote about calling the spirit. So I pair this together more in the sense of how artists respond to the society. So from the humanity point of view, and we are part of the society, we're part of the world. We all live this world together. How we face the tragedy, how we face the whatever the obstacles we have to face. So I think my idea came through. So they really think this is a good idea to introduce American music.
That's so brilliant. Of course, humanity transcends politics, right? So let's go back for a moment, even further in time. I'd love to ask you to talk a little bit about how you got to that moment. Tell us about how you were first exposed to Western music, and we've got some other images to share with the audience here. So tell us, take us back to 1979.
Yes, when I did the John Corigliano American Symphonic Music, it's really after extensive study in America, 15 years in study. So when I went back to China to do that program, I just feel like this is what I learned in the West. I want to introduce this to China. But when you go back to how I get there, you will immediately I feel some of the very important concert influenced my decision to become conductor is from 1979. I was freshman in college, and that year is really a phenomenal year. There's so many wonderful orchestras, the Vienna Philharmonic, Berlin Philharmonic, and Boston Symphony all visited China. So I was a freshman, and I went to every single rehearsal, every single concert. So this program is my I went to the concert with Berlin Philharmonic and with Carry On conduct. And what I remember very, very clearly in that concert, there was like 5,000 people in the concert. You can hear a pin drop. I never experienced the orchestra can produce that kind of sound. But when you look at the conductor, he didn't even move. He stand there with his eye closed, and he had very little movement, but yet he got his power from this orchestra. And that struck me to say, wow, that's how a conductor should be. And then the next, I'll show you next program. And that's the same year as the Boston Symphony Orchestra visit China. Yeah, you can see this, Boston C.D. Ozawa conducted the orchestra. And when you And also that year, C.J. Ozawa came to China, also conduct the Chinese orchestra to perform Beethoven Symphony Number 9. So that's what it's like. Next slide about that.
Let's pause for a second before you get into your Seiji Ozawa story. You know, I'm picturing, this is 1979. I mean,
that's right.
Gosh, I went to China in 1979 and everybody was wearing blue Mao suits and, you know, the lights in the streets were dim. I mean, it was really a country that was literally coming out of darkness. Yeah,
that's true. But, you know, I think that's kind of originality during that time. You cannot compare today. The people are so humble. People are so original. You know, you go to a concert, there were not cell phone, of course. People are so devoted to what they want to hear, what they want to see. So then what the contrast to me and my feeling about when I watch the C.J. Ozawa conducting is Ozawa's conducting, he moved every part of his body. You know, it's like a dance on the podium. Yet the orchestra also came with this gigantic response. So you can see the conductor can be not moving and moving everything, but music is the ultimate, the sound that it produces. And you can see in Ozawa's shirt, there's a little blue signature. Actually, this is after this concert. You know, back then, nobody would jump on stage. You know, I just so moved, I jump on stage. And with my pen in hand, I said, Maestro, can you sign the program for me? That was really, I remember everything. And if you open the program, I don't see you have it. I have it here. You can see in the program, on the side, after I get home, I wrote a poem about how I feel about this music, how I feel about this conductor. And because of two, it's a very important concert. One is the Boston Symphony, one is the Berlin Philharmonic, one's with C.J. Ozawa, one's with Corigliano. And I decided I want to be a conductor. And I decided I want to be a conductor. If I want to study conducting, I have to go to the West. That's how I end up here.
Wow, that is such a beautiful story. And I will say the poem that you wrote on the pages of the program, I mean, that so perfectly captures the sense of passion that was kind of raging through Beijing at that moment. And gosh, you really brought it to life for us. So let's talk a little bit about what's happened since then in terms of Chinese and American public's exposure to each other's music. I mean, obviously Western classical music has absolutely blossomed and is huge in China these days. So talk a little bit about that and what you see happening in the States as well.
Yeah, the first American orchestra visit China is 1973, the Philadelphia Orchestra with Eugene Ormandy. And back then, you know, China just opened, it was in the Cultural Revolution. And in 1979, China just opened to the world. And from there on, gradually, you know, music becomes so important to open China or to see outside the world through this music, through the orchestra. And for many musicians, especially musicians in my generation, we just benefit from this cultural exchange so much. And then now today, you can see, you know, in China, classical music in China become a powerhouse. And they not only create new orchestras, opera houses, and performances all the time, but also you can see in America, I would say every single symphony orchestra, every single opera house, every single conservatory, they all have Chinese musicians in it. And the Chinese musicians really supplied many of those musicians in the Metropolitan Opera, in New York Philharmonic, and in Juilliard Conservatory or Bard College Conservatory of Music, and around the world. You know, there are many musicians now still studying America, studying Europe, and then many of the Chinese musicians work in Europe and work in America. So this, you know, music, there's no boundaries. And as long as you are talented and you play with your heart, people will understand you. It doesn't matter where you come from. I think that probably is a part of the important humanity we all have to think about. You
Absolutely.
know,
So It's interesting. I want to get to, the current environment in a minute, but before we do that, I also wanted to ask you about, it seems a little bit lopsided in a way. I mean, people in China know so much about Western classical music, and yet we in the States don't know a whole lot about Chinese music. So share with us a little bit your concept at Bard, what you're doing there.
Yes, that's thank you for asking that question. The Western music went to China, I say more than 400 years ago, and with the missionary bring the music, the Chinese Western instrument to China, then that start taking roots. And for now, the world become what I call smaller or unified. I feel there is also much talented Chinese musicians in China. We need to explore them to the world. So that's how we started this U.S.-China Music Institute. In the institute, the first time, we have the Chinese instrument major student. So you can get a degree for playing Chinese instrument like erhu, pipa, guzheng, dizi, and so on. And also we have a once a year, a big China Now Music Festival in New York City. We have it done two times, and we're planning online one in December. And this year we focus on China and Beethoven, how Beethoven influenced on Chinese society. So that's and so what I'm trying to do is on both sides to introduce the music from each other and to understand through music, to understand how the society is about, what is the strengths and the music tradition of America, the music tradition of China, and in the 21st century, I think that will become the new source of classical music in general. Mm-hmm. And the sources, from all different cultural sources come from all different nations. I think that will be the future of the classical music.
But I also love the idea that you're bringing Chinese classical music students to study Chinese music here, but at the same time get a Western liberal education.
I think that's a very important idea too. It's not the Chinese student, even we recruit Chinese students come here to study Chinese instruments, but also same time they learn American liberal arts education. So basically what I like to see is there's a new generation of musicians, Chinese musicians actually have international mind, has a global vision. So that those people, I hope, will take a very important role for further develop music in the world in general.
You're going to grow a bunch of miniature Cai Jindongs and populate the world. That's fantastic. So we have only a few more minutes, but I really think it's important to end this conversation with what's happening now. And I'm really curious as to whether you're concerned. We all know that there are growing tensions between China and the United States. And I'm just really wondering if you're concerned about that having an effect on cultural exchange.
As you said, we all worried, and it's really the COVID makes some devastating effect as well. So you cannot communicate in person, you cannot have any performance in the concert hall, and so this is one fact. But the other in fact, it's the U.S.-China relationship, and it's in this kind of a chaotic situation as well. And for me, I believe people want to know each other, and people want to know each other doesn't matter what. And also art and music, it's a very, very important tool for this understanding, for the people to understand better. So even in today's situation, I think as an artist, as a musician, and I think what I see is opportunity, and how we can continue to connect with Chinese musicians, how we can continue to share this vision of music of our age. And I definitely believe this we will prevail. I talk to my Chinese musician colleagues and all the time, and they have the same worry, but at the same time they say, because the political situation and the economic situation getting worse, but because of that, maybe arts and music and can get more people's attention, get more, and we can do some more. And we don't have to rely on the government to do anything. And we do it between the institutions, we do between people. For example, this year, our Bard Conservatory students, there are quite a few students actually from China. They're stuck in China. They cannot come back on campus. So the Central Conservatory of Music arranged 10 of our students to stay in the Central Conservatory campus, stay in their international student dormitory, and the students can integrate with the Chinese, with their own with the Central Conservatory own students, and same time taking class online with the Bard Conservatory. And also we open a class just for some conservatory student to English class, for example, for them to participate online. So this is we're continue to doing and those things, I think, and those are definitely will continue our cultural exchange.
Right, and that's why we're so proud and honored to be working with you to keep moving cultural exchange forward. It's just so incredibly important, and we're grateful for everything you do. So my last question for you is, going back to 1997, that concert also has a very special personal meaning to you, right? I mean, didn't you meet someone important?
The concert was very successful, but at the same time, personally, I think I'm successful throughout the concert. I get some wonderful the fruit from the concert series. And during the concert, and because it's a theme, so there's American journalist Sheila Melvin, was in Shanghai, and so she wanted to interview me. So we did an interview about that. And after concert, I came back to the United States, and one day, a friend told me, "Hey, there's a big article in the Wall Street Journal about your concert in Shanghai." So that's it's the first encounter between Sheila and me. But then a year later, more than a year later, I went back to Shanghai again to do another concert, and I was wondering if this lady is still there, so I can thank her.
Based in Shanghai, yeah.
That's right. So I can thank her, and then she was there, and from there on we started to communicate. And
that's wonderful.
20 years after, we have a wonderful 2 children and a great, wonderful family. So that's
glad to hear that U.S.-China co-production is going so well. So I'm so sorry, really, truly so sorry that we have to stop here, because the conceit of this Pieces of China is that it should be bite-sized, short, but I promise you all who are watching that we will definitely have Jindong Cai back again before long. He's already promised to do that, and he's going to, in fact, join an upcoming program on the Chinese orchestra. So we're very, very excited about that. I want to urge you all to become members of China Institute, please, because when you do that, you help us bring brilliant speakers like Jindong Cai to our programming. As always, you can find the Pieces of China episodes on our YouTube page. Please join us for the next episode on October 8th with Ambassador Winston Lord, who is going to tell us about a secret trip he took to China in 1971 and share his insights on U.S.-China relations. So Jindong, I want to thank you so much for helping us tell the story of China. It's really an honor.
Thank you. I really thank the China Institute to have this whole series of pieces of China. I watch them all the time, and it's a wonderful way to connect people.
Well, we're thrilled to have you. Thank you so much. Take care.